welcome back to Mariana Math Books. My name is Mariana and today I am finally back after, I think the last video I posted was in November and I miss filming and posting and booktube. I obviously have been watching booktube. I've been watching a lot of favorites books of the year's video, and actually for today, or rather tomorrow, or no, I mean tomorrow from when I'm filming, today from when you are watching. For today, I was planning on doing my favorite books of 2024, but I decided against it because that takes longer to edit, and realistically, I know I'm not going to be able to edit that video for tomorrow, and so instead I decided to talk about my reading plans for 2025 because, as we all do, I have a lot of, or I have been thinking a lot about my reading plans for this year, and I am very excited about them. I kind of want to film a video talking about finding myself as a reader since I joined BookTube, because I feel like I'm in a very awesome place reading wise, in the sense that I feel like I know myself, like I really know myself as a reader, and I know how to choose books, and I am very excited about the books I'm reading currently. So I want to film a video about that, but today is not that video. that was just to say that I am very excited for my reading plans because I know myself very well as a reader, and I feel like 2025 really consolidated my reading self. And so I'm very excited for, or rather, 2024 really consolidated my reading self. And so I'm very excited for 2025 to have just the whole year to read in the way that I read, and to just be myself as a reader, if that makes sense. And because of that, I feel like my reading plans are very concise, although it's still me, so it's still very kind of sort of all over the place. But if I were to summarize what my reading plans are for 2025, I would say 2025 is going to be the year of history, fantasy, and classics. If I was a different person, I would end the video there. Because that's essentially the summary of what it is. So essentially that is what hopefully, or at least now that's what I'm thinking, that I want my reading year to look like. Mainly history, fantasy, and classics. And when I say history, I mean that I am going to continue reading a lot of non-fiction history. I am continuing Historathon. However, when I say history, I also mean that just in general, history is present in the books that I like to read. Whether that means because it is just straight up a historical non-fiction book, or because it is a historical fiction book, which I don't read a lot of, but last year I started to read more, and this year I want to read even more also. So history present in fiction as well, but then also in terms of, for instance, historical fantasy, or just in general books that have a historical setting that don't take place in the contemporary era. Which, I mean, I feel like if you've watched my channel, you can gather that I don't read a lot of contemporary fiction. I don't read a lot of books that are set in contemporary times, unless it's non-fiction like a memoir or poetry or something like that. And also, and this kind of ties in with the classics portion of my goals, I feel like one of the reasons why I like classics. And when I say classics, I mean books written in the 19th century or before. That's my definition. There are tons of definitions of classic books. I feel like for me, when I say classics, I usually mean from 19th century or before. Maybe early 20th century also. Yes. Let's say before modernism. Yes, okay, before modernism, that is what I mean when I say I want to read classics this year. And again, one of the appeals of reading classics from that definition for me is precisely that you are reading a piece of history. The authors that are writing, they are writing from their time period, obviously, unless they're writing historical fiction, and you get a glimpse of life in different times. So that is part of the appeal. So in that sense, history is very present in everything that I read, not only because if it's a book that is directly historical nonfiction or historical fiction, but because I do feel that everything that I read is kind of soaked in historical elements, and that is what I personally like. Of course, another appeal for me about classics is the type of language, the type of prose, the type of writing, the type of books, the type of stories, the type of characters. Even when I read fantasy, which is my next goal, right? Fantasy, I usually prefer 90s and back, or books that have a feeling of being old time. Again, I don't love contemporary fiction, and that includes all types of contemporary fiction. Of course, there are exceptions, there are always exceptions when it comes to books, but in general, I don't love it. In terms of fantasy, also mainly written by women, and that is something that I've been focusing on a lot since last year, and I want to keep focusing on that. I do prefer fantasy written by women, like by a lot. What would be the expression? By a lot. Uh, Again, there are exceptions. Again, I'm not saying I won't read anything that is not written by a woman, but mostly fantasy written by women, speculative fiction, etc. I feel like I didn't mention in terms of fantasy, I do want to focus on historical fantasy. Maybe I did mention it. Anyway, so that is a focus. So that is generally, in summary, what I will be focusing on. Essentially, history, fantasy, and classics. Of course, that's not all that I'm going to read, because I do like to read other types of things. If you have seen my channel before, you know that I don't only focus on one thing as much as I love channels that have a focus, and I would love to be able to have a channel with a focus. I can't focus. So, other stuff I also read is romance. I didn't read a lot of romance last year, but I did read more romance towards the end of the year, and so I am still like in the mood to read more romance than what I read the year before. I also love nonfiction, and not only historical nonfiction, some poetry, some essays, which leads me to one of my miscellaneous goals that is not about the genres, and that is that I kind of want this year to be like a low-buy year. I'm very inspired with that at the moment. And for me, what that also means is okay, so I participated in a local reading event in December and the first week of January, and I had an amazing time. I discovered many favorites, including 2 favorites of the year and 1 favorite of all time book. And in that readathon, I read a lot of, or more than I usually do, of paper books, and I got to a rhythm with reading them. I don't read them a lot nowadays. I do read more on my Kindle because it is more friendly for my eyesight and also in terms of like accessibility and stuff, it is more friendly, and so I'm very used to reading digitally now. But I do love paper books. I feel like we all do. And I got to a rhythm of reading them. I do read them slower and I don't read as much, as many. I read mostly Kindle, then audiobooks, then paper books. But I'm kind of inspired to get into a rhythm of reading more paper books and tackling the books that I haven't read that are on my bookshelf. So, for instance, one of the ones that I read that I haven't finished but I'm currently reading is the Lais of Marie de France, which is medieval lit romantic stories. And I really love that because it's like reading a tale before bed, and it's short, and when I'm reading in paper I don't stay as late as I do when I'm reading on my Kindle, and I get cooked on the book and then I end up going to bed really late. So all that to say that I want to read more from my bookshelf. And one of the sections of my bookshelf that I want to tackle is my poetry and essay dose. And I kind of want to tackle that section. So I will, or hopefully will, be reading more essay and poetry. And I want to also focus on medieval literature. That obviously would fit into my classics slash history section of my goals, of my main goals, but I want to specify that because usually I do end up reading more um, either 19th century or early 20th century literature when it comes to classics, and I do want to make it a point to be reading more medieval literature, which I really do love. I have been really enjoying the Lays of Marie de France, and I feel like every year I read at least one piece of medieval fiction, so or medieval literature rather, not necessarily fiction, also poetry or even non-fiction I have read, uh, and I really love that. So I want to be reading more, focusing more on adding more medieval literature to my reading, and with that more epic poetry also, or longer poetry. Okay, so now I'm just like telling you random stuff that I would like to also read, but my main focus for the year is history, classics, fantasy. Like that is my main focus. And so my no buy, no, not no buy, low buy, low buy goal for this year will start after I finish shopping for books. I do feel like when I've seen a lot of people that do the read what I own, it's like just let me buy the ones that I haven't bought and then I will start. So I'm kind of like that. I just have a little bit more and then I'm done. And then for my Kindle, what I would like to do, or the parameter that I would like to give myself, is not buying Kindle books before I have checked my unread books on my Kindle. Because often what happens is that I will buy new books, and then when I randomly go through the ones I have on my Kindle, I always find books that I would like to read, obviously because I bought them, right? So what I want to tell myself is not like saying I won't buy Kindle books, but what I want to do is check my unread library on Kindle, and if I don't find anything there that I want to read, then I can buy another book. And also before buying, focusing or either on Kindle Unlimited or on Project Gutenberg, right? I've been reading a lot of Project Gutenberg recently, since I've been reading a lot of classics recently. And so firstly focus on that, and then if not, then resort to buying. Another aspect that helps me is my membership for audiobooks, which is an app called Storytel, which is not like Audible where you get credits, but rather you pay your subscription and you can listen to as many audiobooks as you want. You just pay a monthly fee. And that leads me to I've been reading a lot in Spanish, and I feel like I kind of deviated from that when I started booktube because my channel is in English, but there are many classics translated to Spanish on Kindle Unlimited. So I want to be reading more of those. Like, I want to choose the books that I want to read based first on favoring the low buy, and then if every resource is unavailable to not buy a book, then I will buy it if I'm going to read it at the moment. That is what I say at the moment. But, it's me. So, like, I might break this promise, but I'm really hoping I won't. In terms of readathons, my three main readathons are going to be Historathon, Middle Grade March, and Shorty September. Now that Nonfiction November is not around, I can, like, solidly say Shorty September, favorite readathon of the year. Middle Grade March, every year I've done it since I've been on booktube, and every year at least one of the books I read for Middle Grade March has made it into my top of the year. So I of course will continue that. And Historathon, I talked about it at the beginning of the video, staple of my life, so of course that is going to definitely continue. And that would be it for the books portion of this video. And then for the tarot portion of this video, that is an area of my life where I am very focused at the moment. I guess my main goal is continue with classic tarot, and when I say classic tarot, I mean Marseille, Italian, and that tradition. So historical tarot. Even see, if you watch the book portion of my video, if you're here and didn't skip the book portion of my video, history is present there as well. See, it's not like history is, I guess, the main thing that is present in throughout all my goals, even in tarot. This year, or for Christmas, I received a bunch of new decks. I feel like only one was RWS, and they are all amazing. And one thing that it made me solidify is I am most definitely divorcing RWS. It doesn't mean I'm never going to read with RWS ever, but it means I'm mostly almost never. I did receive one RWS deck from Kickstarter this week that is amazing and is making me question that resolution because I really want to read with that one, but the way it's designed, I feel like it would work for more like a more cartomantic style of reading, and that is something that is very true in my tarot life at the moment. When I do read with RWS, I read it like Marseille, not 100% obviously, but I do read it more in a cartomantic style than RWSE style. So I am pretty much divorcing RWS, and the decks that I do still potentially could read with, I am going to read them more in a cartomantic style. So I guess, yeah, divorcing RWS at least for the foreseeable future, which will help with the low buy goal because most of the decks that are created are RWS, so that bodes well for me because if you watch my book portion of the video, my low buy, of course, I wanted to extend for decks as well. And what that means is not that I'm not going to buy decks, it just means that I want it to be a very curated choice, even more so than I do now. I did go a bit crazy at the end of the year, and that is what inspired my low buy resolution. If you have been following me on Instagram, for instance, you know that last year was my Marseille year. 2023, the end of 2023 was when I started learning Marseille. And so in 2024, I wanted to practice what I learned. And so I thought it's going to be my Marseille year. My idea was at least half of the year, and then if I really miss RWS, I can give myself permission to use it after at least 6 months. So that was my original idea, and I ended up going strong with Marseille for the whole year. And as you see, that's not changing. Like what happened on my Marseille year was just solidifying the idea that that is my jam, that is where I'm comfortable, that is what I love. And again, the historical aspect is a big part of what makes me love it so much, um, as well as the way it's read and my issues with some stuff in the tarot land. So still going strong with classic tarot for this year and for the foreseeable future. And that includes other cartomantic, traditional cartomantic systems. So at the end of last year, I started learning a bit of playing cards and Lenormand, and I am obsessed with Lenormand. When I started learning it, I was a bit worried because I thought, wait a minute, is this going to be my main system? Do I prefer Lenormand to Tarot? That is still to be decided because I have to learn it more, learn it better. But I really love it, guys. I really, really, really love it. And it's making me question everything about myself as a reader, as a card reader. So of course I'm going to continue with both, with playing cards and with Lenormand. But the other system that I want to learn this year is Kipper. Funnily enough, I thought that Sibylla would be the one that interested me most, and after watching a video by my Marseille teachers who I love, and they actually love Sibylla. One of them is passionate for Sibylla. And after watching one of their Sibylla videos where they talked about the history of Sibylla, and then one of their Kipper videos where they talked about the history of Kipper, the plot twist of the year was that I decided I have zero interest in Sibylla and I am very interested in Kipper. And I did not see that coming. Kipper was not even near my mind. Like, Kipper was... no. And after that video, and after the history of Kipper, well, now I'm super interested. It seems like a fascinating system. I love the way it works. I love the way it reads. I bought the Card Geek guide to learning Kipper cards, and I've been watching her channel, and I found the most amazing Kipper on Etsy that I discovered just in time because this shop was closing in December, like closing for good forever and ever. And so she was like sending the last of the decks, and I found it just in time. So anyway, I'm super excited about Kipper as well. So continuing with Marseille, continuing learning playing cards and Lenormand, and super excited to learn Kipper. So just in general, continuing with traditional cartomancy. In terms of videos, I decided against opening a separate channel because I don't want to do that to myself because of several life reasons. I was very excited to start a new channel because I want to share my passion for traditional cartomancy, but I feel like if I do videos about that, it will be in this channel. Basically, I'm in the mindset of I'll see how it goes and I'll do what I feel like doing in terms of videos. So those are my reading goals, both books and cards. As I said, I feel like I have really found myself as a reader, especially in books. In cards, I feel like I'm finding myself as a reader. But of course, I'm much newer to reading cards, so I'm still learning. But I'm finding my place. Anyway, that would be it for today because I have to go eat. As always, I always start these videos right before I have to go eat. So I hope you're having a good start of the year. I will see you soonish with another video. And yeah, that would be it. Thank you so much for watching. And in the meantime, happy reading.